Hamas will not go anywhere. Hamas will stay where it is. Hamas was born out of the Gaza population. Hamas was born out of fighting off other political groups such as Fatah, and Hamas had a very clear ideological agenda of what they want to achieve. I don't think any of that gets diminished. Yes, their capacities are diminished, but these kind of organizations are in it for the very long term.
Welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. My guest is Kabir Taneja. He's Deputy Director of the Strategic Studies Program at the Observer Research Foundation. And we're going to talk about the recent killing of Mohammad Sinwar, the head of Hamas, by Israel. Kabir, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Mohammad Sinwar's death happened perhaps about a week ago. He was killed in a bunker from the reports that Israel is putting out. And his death was confirmed only the other day. Kabir, how do you read this? Hamas has lost a lot of its top chiefs. What would you say the state of the organization is?
Look, I think it's very safe to say that they are in quite disarray at this point of time. Their tactical and strategic abilities to operate inside Gaza have been fairly diminished. They've lost a lot of people, so they've lost a lot of blood. The biggest problem with these kind of organization happens when there's a decapitation of leadership itself, and we saw that with Yahya Sinwar a couple of months ago, I think almost a year ago, and now his brother Mohammad Sinwar. From the sort of get-go, I think appointment of Mohammad Sinwar as the next chief after Yahya Sinwar showed that there is already a leadership gap happening inside Hamas. Mohammad Sinwar was not a very, very erudite or well-known figure. Yes, he was sort of right next to Yahya Sinwar, being a relative, being a brother. But we have seldom come through his name as a potential sort of replacement for someone as charismatic, for a lack of a better term, and as popular within the Hamas system as Yahya Sinwar was. So you have to remember that Yahya Sinwar also took on the political classes of Hamas on what kind of position that Hamas should take. So I don't think it's a huge loss as far as Hamas is concerned, but it does sort of highlight that there is a significant leadership battle or leadership loss of Hamas, and how they go forward is going to determine their future.
Could it be that Mohammad Sinwar was not the real guy, the real military chief of Hamas is in the shadows?
Look, I mean, that's plausible. In these kind of organizations, there are military commanders that are often sort of on the front lines and more powerful and more well informed on how to take the group forward. But we like in any political organization, the leadership battle always has to come from a place and a name and a position where you can also win narrative battles. Mm-hmm. It's not just about the front lines. It's about having some weight behind who the person is going to lead. Ismail Haniyeh was one weight. Yahya Sinwar was one weight. Both are eliminated now. So just the continuation of the Sinwar name, I think, would have given some sort of bandwidth to Hamas moving forward. And I don't think it was much beyond that. But also, whoever was going to come after Yahya Sinwar, considering how small the Gaza geography is, how destroyed the Gaza geography is, there's very little place for these guys to hide. It was inevitable that even this new person, a new name, would be eliminated at some point.
Mm-hmm. So since you mentioned it, Israel says it's going to control 70% of Gaza, and it's going to have boots on the ground. Where does Hamas go?
Hamas will not go anywhere. Hamas will stay where it is. Hamas was born out of the Gaza population. Hamas was born out of fighting off other political groups such as Fatah, and Hamas had a very clear ideological agenda of what they want to achieve. I don't think any of that gets diminished. Yes, their capacities are diminished, but these kind of organizations are in it for the very long term. Now the crisis point comes to Israel as well. Yes, you can say today that we will control 80 to 85 or 90% of Gaza's territories. But what does that mean? How long will your soldiers actually be there? Are they going to be responsible for the governance, for delivering aid, for building up Gaza moving forward? How are you going to handle the populations which will have a very anti-Israel outlook, considering the kind of bombardment that has and death that has taken place in Gaza following Hamas's terror attack in 2023? All these questions are actually contentious between the civil and military leadership inside Israel as well. They, of course, the military leadership will follow the civilian leadership's diktats, but they have raised questions about what the clear agenda moving forward is. If even if they're holding territory for the next 3 months, 4 months, it will be unfeasible for the military to hold territory for 5 years or 10 years. So they have to come up with a political track at some point to replace Hamas. We have heard some murmurs, for example, the Saudis and the French working together in disarming Hamas and giving them some sort of political legitimacy within a future framework of whatever Gaza's framework is going to look like. But these are all sort of this cannot be done beyond a point by external actors. You will have to involve some sort of Palestinian political representation, which lives abroad, I presume, which is more feasible than doing approaching people inside Gaza right now. So there are a lot of these multiple wheels moving around, and no one has real clarity about where it is going to go. So we'll have to wait and watch and see what kind of, even if the Israelis are going to hold territory in Gaza, how long that is feasible for, and what kind of political track they eventually move on to.
How badly do you think Hamas, I mean, its numbers, its personnel, how badly have they lost out? Have they been able to make up those numbers?
Look, there are conflicting reports on that. There are some reports that suggest they have made up numbers, and these reports have been reported in output that has come out of the United Nations, for example. But we have to remember, United Nations reports are equally
Yeah.
under influence of member countries on what kind of data is presented. But if you see some of the, for example, exchanges of prisoners that took place, Hamas tried to tried to visualize at least and portray themselves as not having lost that much. They
Mhm.
came in full sort of almost Hollywood-like fatigues
Hmm.
and masks, and armed with cameras and backgrounds to showcase basically that they are the predominant entity, political or military, in Gaza. So that sort of counters at some level, I presume, that how much they have been diminished, but the reality is they have been diminished significantly. They have lost a lot of numbers. And even with some of the numbers being portrayed as saying that they have sort of regained 10, 15,000 fighters and so on and so forth, there's no really proof of it at this point of time. But having said that, we don't know what the mood of the population in Gaza is. There can be the survivors can find solace in Hamas also moving forward.
Yeah.
They can join Hamas because they have experienced a lot of destruction and death within their families and so on and so forth. So we don't know what kind of mood the Gazan population is going to have 5 years down the line. Right now, they are all looking for a ceasefire. But what kind of, whether this sort of ceasefire is going to lead to any kind of long term solution between Israel and the Palestine issue, I highly doubt it at this point of time.
Does it give an edge to the PA, the Palestinian Authority?
I don't even know what the PA is doing at this point of time. We saw the President Mahmoud Abbas being in Lebanon, for example, and he was there with an explicit aim that the Lebanese government has of disarming Hamas and Hezbollah ecosystems in Lebanon. Now, that is easy to do in Lebanon because someone else is leading it. So
Yeah.
President Abbas's position there is basically as coming as the PA authority, but I don't see PA being powerful enough or getting enough international backing, or at least President Abbas getting international backing to take any kind of facilitation, political facilitation forward. He's been the president since, I don't know, I was a kid, I think. So that speaks volumes about the political process within the PA as well, that they've not actually moved the needle themselves. So
Yeah.
which is why there is this urgency of what the future political process is going to be. Right now, people mention PA because there's no other thing to mention. But I think there will have to be a fresh outlook and a fresh political initiative launched by the international community, most probably, to see what kind of replacement can be done for Hamas, and if some kind of arrangement can be done that Hamas is given political legitimacy of some sort in exchange of disarmament, which, for example, the Saudis and the French seem to be discussing.
Mhm. Would you say the PA is a little more acceptable to the West?
I mean, look, the PA has been acceptable in the past. I don't know if it's acceptable anymore. If you talk to some interlocutors in the West, they say, look, we need a much more fresh initiative, because if you go back to the PA, chances of coming back to stage one of everything are very high. And they want a kind of ecosystem that has some sort of mobility, as low as it may be, in
Mhm.
reconciliation of some sort between Israel and whoever the political authority in Gaza is going to be. We have to remember that Israel is a very, very survivalist state. It lives in an existential mode. But also we
Yeah,
have to remember, within that construct, Israel is a very realist state as well. They have had outreach to Hamas, through the Qataris. They have talked
yeah,
to every actor that they don't like. So they are under no illusion that I think that they will be able to completely eliminate these actors without a political resolution to it. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu may have that view at this point of time, for both personal reasons and survivalist reasons. But in the long term, there has to be some sort of middle ground where these parties can at least talk moving forward.
mhm. You mentioned Lebanon a short while ago. What is the condition of Hezbollah at this point? Are they being disarmed?
Hezbollah is also in a very tight spot. Specifically after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, in Syria, that is, a lot of the highways that were feeding Hezbollah from Iran, have been shut down, including airports. We saw Aleppo airport has been bombed multiple times by the Israelis,
Yeah,
and Ahmad al-Sharra himself has sort of moved to dismantle a lot of these ecosystems, including of drug trade and financial trade of financial ecosystems that were feeding into Hezbollah. So Hezbollah is also on a very tight spot. Iran is also looking again at how they can sort of maintain their relationship and fundings for Hezbollah. We have to remember that Iran has loose ties with Hamas, but with
yeah,
Hezbollah it's much deeper. It's much more sort of coming from a Shia-hood, for a lack of a better term. And the fact that the Iranians see themselves as joined at the hip with Hezbollah. So losing Hezbollah may not be an option for Iran, but definitely at this point of time, their highways that were established under Bashar al-Assad in exchange for keeping Bashar al-Assad afloat have been severely dented.
mhm. But Hezbollah's own condition is there some kind of a disarmament underway? Are they being withdrawn from the locations they were on the Israeli border?
There's definitely a lot of pressure on Hezbollah right now to do all of those things for its own survivability. We have to remember, yes, that Hezbollah is very attached to Iran, but Hezbollah is its own entity as well. It has its own
Yeah.
constituencies inside Lebanon. Lebanon is a very fractured society, as between Christians, between Mennonites, and between Shias, between Sunnis. And the Shia representation is often equated to Iran and Hezbollah support. So they have to maintain that. They have to sort of keep that in mind when moving forward. So their own survivability may actually end up coming to their own political decisions inside Lebanon. The new Lebanese leadership is supported by the Americans and the Saudis, so it's not in favor of giving too much space to Hezbollah as well. So there is that immense pressure to move away from the southern front to disarm, in exchange for keeping its political head above the water. Now, what Hezbollah decides, I think they have been fairly quiet over the past 2 months,
Yeah.
a month and a half, 2 months. Even Israel, if you notice, has not targeted the leadership for some time. I think they are giving that space to Saudi Arabia and the US to try and manage the situation in Lebanon without civilian casualties coming into play. So there's a lot of that going on, but again, we'll have to wait and see how the new leadership in Beirut manages to do this in the coming months.
And incidentally, who is heading Hezbollah now?
So Hezbollah is still sort of the leadership. I haven't followed, but name is escaping at this point of time. After Nasrallah's killing and the subsequent changes that took place, the current leadership was seen as, you know, palatable to some kind of conversations with political leadership in Beirut. That they can like talk and maybe convince them, considering how much losses they've taken. That they can convince them to take maybe half a step or one full step back, and then see what kind of situation arises from that point of time. And I think at least half a step back from Hezbollah has happened. But the longevity of it is the question, and so we'll have to, again, unfortunately or fortunately, wait and see what happens, because it's very difficult to predict what happens in the Middle East.
True, yeah, yeah. I want to come to Netanyahu.
Yeah.
How much of all this is driven by his need to escape the judicial, sort of Damocles over his head?
I think good percentage, because if Netanyahu is out of power, I think the entire Israeli system may go after him for
Yeah,
various reasons, including corruption. But we've also seen tremendous amount of public protest against Netanyahu. Even some of the survivors who were exchanged with Hamas out of Gaza after being captive for almost a year and a half have come out, sort of pushing Netanyahu to strike deals for other survivors to be returned and not delay these things. So
yeah,
there is tremendous pressure. If he's out of power, I think he'll be sort of fair game for a lot of institutions. But you have to also remember, while that is one tenet of why his decision making may be what it is right now, but a lot of the decision making he's doing is something he politically and ideologically has believed for a long period of time. Even if you go back to some of the initiatives taken to not normalize, but come to some sort of accord between the Palestinians and the Israelis, Netanyahu was almost always vehemently against it.
yeah,
He never
yeah.
stood for it. So politically, he's very consistent to what his line has been as a politician for a long period of time. That's not changed so much. But yes, it's now with the added caveat that if he's not in power, he will be in trouble, and potentially facing prison time as well.
And there's also the impact on the Israeli economy. One wonders how long they can sustain this.
The economy has been doing okay, actually. The economy is, it's not in negative growth. Yes, it is under considerable strain, but we have to also remember that the economy is not that big. And it is a very economy very, very sort of based around high technologies, which still have and still find favor around the world from customers. So that kind of exchange really hasn't had that kind of impact. Yes, trade has had an impact. Ports like Haifa are not doing what they were supposed to be doing at this point of time. And there is a lot of blockade. Getting in and out is very difficult from Tel Aviv. A lot of flights are cancelled. Direct flights from Delhi are not running right now. So that all that has taken place, but I think the economy somehow has held on from nearing any type of collapse. And that, with the fact that the Americans help out militarily tremendously, give a lot of
Yeah,
aid,
yeah.
helps them keep afloat.
So last word, Kabir, on India. We've been looking at the whole process. We're not saying very much. I'm not sure we can do very much either. What kind of a role do you see for India here, or any role at all?
I think India has been very, very consistent in its positions. It has called for a ceasefire, and has actually also called for Israel to be mindful of the kind of bombing that is taking place in Gaza. It has tried to send aid into Gaza, but of course, aid into Gaza is not traveling because of Israel's decision making at this point of time.
Yeah,
And but India has also been very vehemently supportive of Israel's position in countering terrorism, because it sort of equates to our positions.
yeah,
If you see, after Pahalgam, Israel was very vocal in its support of India's counter-terror activities. So there is some sort of semblance between the two states on when it comes to counter-terrorism, but India has to manage much more than Israel does. India has to
true.
manage its positions with the Arab world. Our majority of our trade, especially with the UAE and the GCC bloc, happens, and it's multi hundreds of billions of dollars. We have domestic considerations as well. We have the second or the third largest now, I can't remember, but Muslim population that needs to be taken into account when you're making decisions like this,
Yeah.
because we don't want a lot of what is happening in the Middle East to come here. Or have impact into our domestic lives and domestic
Yeah.
politics, and that is a consideration that India puts forward when it's formulating its foreign policy for the Middle East. So India has taken a very balanced stand on based on its interest. India has never sort of moved into the Middle East taking positions on Middle East issues, because that's a futile exercise, as we know, and as the West has found out in over the last many
Yeah.
decades.
And last word, what do you think of Trump's efforts in that direction?
Trump's efforts are very designed around what Trump wants. It has very little to do with what Israel wants, or whether there should be peace in Gaza at this point of time, or how to handle Iran right now. Right? For example, he's supported Israel for a long period of time, but when it came to trying to strike a Trumpian deal with Iran, sort of a swan song for his tenure, he's told Israel to keep quiet and
Yeah.
not meddle in it. He's already, there are reports now where he's told Netanyahu, if you are not allowed to strike Iran at this point of time. So
Mm.
suddenly, even Israel, the closest ally, so to speak,
Yeah.
to US, has been sidelined because Trump wants to strike something that he wants to strike. It has nothing
Yeah.
to do with what the American position is. It's what Trump wants to do. So it's a
Yeah.
personality over policy game, and Israel is also finding that hard to navigate like everyone else.
Kabir Taneja, great talking to you. Nice perspective and analysis, and looking forward to more such conversations going forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's all we have for you on this broadcast. Do follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Good day.